crafty friends, welcome back. Today we are going to make this unicorn felt plushie with this gorgeous yarn hair and mane. This is a beginner level project, good for kids with some adult supervision or someone who wants to learn some beginning felt stitches. There is a link to a free pattern in the description below, so go ahead, click that link, print your pattern, come back here, and let's sew this together. This project is a little bit more intricate with the attachment of this yarn, so if you have not sewn a felt plushie before, if you feel really new to this, I do have a tutorial for another felt unicorn that's just a little bit easier. It just has a felt tail and mane, so you may want to start there. Or if you're up for a challenge, let's go ahead and do this together. So print that pattern, come back here, and let's sew this together. Supplies you're going to need to make this unicorn felt plushie are felt in the colors that you want your unicorn. You're going to need some sewing floss, which is just kind of like thicker thread. And you're going to want it to match the colors of your felt. So I've got one color for the body of my plush. If you want to do some fine detailed eyes, you're going to want some thinner thread. This works better for fine details. I am going to do a curved like eyelashes pattern on this, so I have some thinner just single strand thread. You're going to want an embroidery floss needle. This just has a wider eye for this thicker floss. And then if you're going to sew a more detailed eye, you're going to want a needle that has just kind of like a standard thread needle. Scissors, I'm going to trace your pattern with. And again, the pattern, it is a free printable. You can just click the link in the description below, click and print. So go print out your pattern, cut it out, and come back here and we will put this together. Once you have your pattern cut out, it's time to trace it. You're going to align it right at the edge of your felt so you have as little excess as possible. And these ones that have a cut to, you're going to cut them on the front side where it has the words on it. And you're going to flip it over and you're going to cut it on the back side. So that's going to be for the unicorn's body. And for this leg, it's just going to make it easier for the pattern to line up when we're done. Once you have all your pieces traced, it's time to start cutting them out. Now, when you cut them out, you want to cut off your black tracing line. So cut just inside your pattern a little bit. This will make it so it doesn't show up when we're sewing it together. And just go slow and steady. You are going to need some sharper scissors to cut through the felt. And we're cutting the black line off. And again, if you want to stuff your plushie, hang on to these felt scraps. They're going to be great for stuffing inside of it and making it just a little plush and fluffy. Once you have all your pieces cut out, it's time to start attaching the legs, the front and the back legs. So for a horse, their knees bend opposite of human knees. So their knees kind of bend back. So as you're taking this piece out, line it up on your unicorn piece cut out with this knee part pointing backwards. Then we're going to thread your embroidery needle. I like to thread it and then pull both of my ends the same together, and I'm going to make a loop knot back here. So I'm just going to twist it in a circle, tuck the tail into my circle, and then I like to hold where these lines are crossed on my finger. So I'm lining it up kind of at the end. I'm holding this knot in place and I'm just gently sliding this down. So that puts your knot kind of close to the end. If you find that you have a really long tail at the end, you can just grab your scissors and cut it off. And now with that, we are going to attach this back leg. So I'm just going to go through both pieces of felt, pull my needle, and I'm leaving a little bit back here. And then I'm going to push it back through pretty close to where I came out. And then on this back side, I'm going to pause before I pull it really tight. And between these two threads, I'm going to stick my needle, and this is going to help me knot it in place. Now I've got the leg attached, and I'm actually going to do one more knot. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to slide my needle through where this tight thread is. I'm going to grab the end of it and I'm going to wrap it around my needle 2 times. And then again, I'm going to put my finger over the top of it and I'm going to pull my needle through, and that's just going to give me a big knot here on the back. And then I'm going to trim it down, and I'm going to repeat that step for the front leg. And if you decide that you don't want to do the thinner, more detailed eye, you're going to use these same steps to do the eye of your unicorn. If you are doing an eye, so the eye on my like pterodactyl, it's a lot bigger than this little bit we did back here. And this one, I just went in and out like 3 different times, kind of in the same spot, trying to cross over where I went. And that's going to make your eye hole bigger. Now, when you do the other side of your unicorn, the only thing is we want to sew so that our knots are on the inside of all of it. So take your unicorn, line the pattern up, line your legs up, and as you're sewing it, so I'm going to again do a loop knot, and I want to make sure that the knots for all of these are going to be on the inside of the body. So I don't want to go from the front leg to the back. I want to make sure that I have the unicorn piece lined up with my other one, and then I'm going to go from the inside out so that these kind of thicker knots, they're going to be on the inside of the unicorn and they're not going to show when we sew the pieces together. All right, and then when I put my patterns together, again, you can see that the knots for all of them go on the inside of the unicorn's body, and they are ready for the next level of stitching. Now we're going to grab your thinner thread if you're doing thinner thread. If you are doing embroidery floss, you can just get another knot of embroidery floss. This is going to be a trickier, more detailed thing to do. And if you are sewing something for the first time, this step might be a little tricky for the very first time, and I would probably suggest just doing a knot eye. But for this one, I'm also going to show you how to do kind of the unicorn eyelash eye. So I am taking my thread, I'm making it parallel right here at the end, knotting it together again. And this is kind of slow, more detailed work. So I'm going to pull up my piece and I'm going to try and decide where I want the eye to start. I think right here seems good. I'm going to pull it out and I'm going to put it back through just a little bit down. And I'm going to do the same thing I did with the others. I'm going to make this into a knot back here. I'm putting my needle between these two threads before I pull it tight. Okay. And then I want to go to the edge of this because I want that eye to be a little bit longer. So I'm just going to go down a little bit, coming out over here. And as I'm pulling it through over here, I'm going to go right back through this hole right here that I started at. That's going to give me that longer curved. Okay, and now I want to add some eyelashes. So the next time I'm going to come to the back of it and I'm going to poke my needle through back here. I don't know if I want my eyelash to start quite that far down. I think I want it up a little bit more. So I'm going to actually pull my needle back. I'm going to try it up here. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to pull my needle through. And then I'm going to go right to the corner of where this is. So this is going to be my unicorn's eyelash. Okay, so then I'm going to just add two more. Close, so we're going to go up there. And I'm going to pull this one down to the corner again right here. And I'm going to do one more eyelash, maybe down. Too far. Again, I'm going to put that one right at the corner. There's my unicorn with eyelashes. And then like I did with the others, I'm going to slide my needle through this collection right here. Wrap the string 2 times, put my thumb over it to hold it in place as I'm sliding my needle out. I'm going to trim off the thread. There's my unicorn with her eyelashes. I'm going to repeat that same thing on this other side of your unicorn pattern and get some yarn. And we're going to do a length of yarn from the unicorn's horn to its tail. And then you're going to grab it and you're going to fold it in half. So you have double that length. And we're going to trim it. And then I'm going to tie it into a knot at the end. So I'm going to do a loop knot where you're going to bend it in a circle. And then put the 2 edges through the middle of the circle. You're going to hold on to those edges and you're going to hold on to where the string crosses. You're just going to slide it up together. Just going to put a knot right at the edge of your yarn. Okay, so it's maybe a little long. And then we're going to take some strands of yarn. Again, we're going to go from the horn to the tail, trim it. So we're going to get a piece of yarn that long. We're going to do this as many times as you want. I would say like probably at least 20 times. We're going to cut these lengths of yarn. You also can grab the yarn, make your hand as big as it can, like wrap it around your pinky finger and keep rolling this yarn around it. And then I'm going to snip the top and bottom of this. So it's going to give me a lot of coils of yarn. And if they're a little long, that's okay. I can always hold up one of these other ones and see how long it needs to be and match the length. We can trim it after. Once you have all your strands of yarn, we're going to take your one with the knot. And we're going to start getting your yarn. You're going to put your piece, we're going to bend it in half, and we're going to put the middle half over this yarn that we created. We're going to put the 2 strings through that loop and we're going to pull it tight. We're going to make strands all along it. And this is going to take a few minutes. So again, I'm getting my strand of yarn, bending it in half and putting this loop under my main strand, getting the two edges, and I'm pulling it through this loop and pulling it down so it's tight. And this is going to create the unicorn's fluffy mane. So go ahead and just do this until you have that strand, or you have the top half of it. For the tail, you're going to take a line of yarn and you're going to wrap it loosely around your fingers. If you want to spread your fingers out, this is going to give you a longer tail. If you have your fingers close together, it's going to be a shorter tail. You're just going to wrap it a few times. I'm going to do maybe like 10. And then you're going to trim off any excess. So now I've got this loop of yarn right here. And I'm going to take this bit that I just trimmed off, or if you don't have a bit, you can just unwind one of your loops and trim some. I'm going to put it through all these strands up here, and then I'm just going to tie it in a knot. I'm just going to tie it. I'm just going to tie it 2 times. Make it really nice and tight. So now I have this knotted circle. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut this other end. And this is going to give me my unicorn tail. You can see some of my strands are a little bit long, and I can trim those off later. Right now, I'm just going to leave them long. So now that we have our mane and our tail, we are ready to start piecing our unicorn together. So I'm going to thread my flossing needle, and this time, instead of doing the strings parallel and doing a loop knot with them both together, I'm just going to do a loop knot at the end with a single thread. I'm twisting it together, I'm holding my knot at the end and pulling it through. And I'm going to layer my unicorn pieces one on top of the other so that the knotted pieces are inside on both of them. And then I'm going to start between the 2 legs. I'm going to push my needle through. And then right here at the end, I'm going to put my needle again through a few of these threads so that I can knot it together. Now I'm going to do what's called a blanket stitch until I get to the back here where I want to add the tail. So a blanket stitch is where you go through 2 pieces of fabric, and then you're going to grab this part where it's attached, so kind of over where the knot is, and you're just going to wrap it around the top of the needle, and then we're going to pull it through. We're going to go down a little bit, go through both pieces of fabric, wrap that over, and pull it through. And it gives this nice little stitch where we've got this line over the top, and then we have these other stitches kind of pulling down to the side. I'm gonna wrap it over the top. Got to be careful not to catch all of the other pieces of our unicorn and pull it through. All right, I'm gonna pause right here about 3/4 of the way up the horse's buns. I am going to grab my tail. I'm going to put it between these 2 bits of fabric. I'm holding the knot right there with my fingers. And then we're going to do what's called a running stitch. A running stitch, instead of looping around, we're just going to go in one side. Make sure we're getting some of that yarn. Pull. You're going to have to make sure it doesn't tangle in the yarn threads, and then we're going to just move it down and go back through. We're going to go through the yarn, through both pieces of felt, and we're just going to go back and forth, stitching this yarn tail into place and moving out the threads as we need to, because it's more likely to curl up in these. There we go. We're just going to do that until we're all the way past the yarn and we have the yarn kind of sewn into place. Slow here, pull out the yarn bits as you need to. So now our unicorn has this flowing yarn tail, and we're going to go back and now we're going to do that blanket stitch again. We're going to go through both sides. We're going to grab the edge of our sewing floss, put it over the top, and pull it through. And again, you're going to have to be careful that we're not gathering those yarn threads in, especially when we're so close to the tail right here, because they're easy to accidentally pick up as we're going through this. I'm just going to sew along a little bit, and then we're going to start adding the main pieces about here when we get to the top of the leg. So do a blanket stitch until we're past this set of back legs, and then we're going to add the main yarn, which is also going to be fun, but a little bit different of a process. All right, so now that I'm here, I'm gonna grab my strand of yarn. So this loop that we tied is just to keep it all in place. It's not gonna slide off, and we're gonna heel up our 2 pieces. We're gonna take this strand and we're just gonna put it inside where we want the strands to go. I'm going all the way up around the face because I do want this unicorn to have some bangs. I'll probably trim those down a little bit as I go, but just start by arranging the yarn on the inside, and then we're gonna take this extra bit and we're just gonna put it between these 2 layers. We're not gonna trim it, we're not gonna do anything. We're just gonna put the edges in here so we can see how our unicorn is gonna be. And these little bits keep poking out. We're just gonna poke them in as we sew. I'm gonna do that running stitch again, which is the in and out. So I'm gonna go in through my bits of yarn and out over here. And I am gonna have to be slow and careful that I'm not tangling my sewing floss with the threads or picking up extra pieces. So this is gonna be a slow and careful. Right now, I'm just gonna worry about what I am sewing right here. Go through both pieces, make sure it's coming out. Make sure that I'm not tangling up these bits of yarn on this side. Nice. Now I'm gonna bend it, go back through it this way. Just repositioning it in as I go. All right, and as I'm getting up towards the face, I'm again rearranging these strands. I want the bangs, but I don't want this cord. And I'm just gonna continue this in and out stitch around the ears because I want the ears to be not sewn together. I want them to be like 2 separate ears. We're just gonna keep going all the way. We're gonna keep doing this running stitch all the way until the horn. Go through both pieces, and then you're going to wrap the edge around the top of the needle. And it is most important to keep the edges of the fabric together, even if they're a little misaligned other places, because they'll look fine once we fill it with our filler, once we get it stuffed and fluffy. We're going to continue this blanket stitch all the way around the face, and we're going to stuff under this first set of arms. We are going to start filling the inside of your unicorn. So if you have felt scraps, these work great. You can use polyfill. I'm a little bit low on both, so I'm actually just going to use a paper towel today. So you're going to wad up a little bit, and then you want to fill the furthest away places first. So I'm going to fill her face first and the back of her tail. I'm just going to smush it in here and then wiggle it up. And if it's filling too tight, you might need a smaller piece. And a lot of times I will use the back of a pencil or my scissors. I'll use my scissors today, and I'm just gonna push it into my unicorn's face. Make it all the way down to her nose. Add a little bit more. And once you have it stuffed as much as you want it, we're going to go back and we're going to continue this blanket stitch all the way back to where we started. And you're going to want to be careful not to catch whatever filler you've used as we're going through. We just want the 2 edges of our felt. And a lot of times for me, that means I need to push in the filler as I'm going so that my needle doesn't accidentally catch it and so that it doesn't get pulled out of the inside of my creature. Okay, now this is my final stitch. This is putting me right back at the beginning. So I'm going to go through where I started. I'm going to wrap my string, and this time instead of just wrapping it once, I'm going to wrap it 2 times. I'm going to hold it in place with my finger as I'm pulling my stitch through. And now I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to poke it into my unicorn's body. and out the top over here. Pull my thread all the way through. And then I'm gonna trim it off right here, right close to the body. I'm pulling it really tight so that when I cut it, it goes back inside and disappears into my unicorn's body. There we have it. Here is our finished unicorn. If you want to go through and trim down the bits of the mane a little bit, if they're feeling, this one has some kind of long pieces, you might want to like trim them to be more even or cut some bangs. If you like this or you're interested in more easy follow along sewing tutorials, be sure to like, follow, and come back next week for another free tutorial, pattern, and sew along.